Let's evaluate our journey of inner peace. This evening's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. The question begins with a phrase, "How do you know if you are making progress?" The question continues, and by the way, forgive me if I look like the great Gretzky. It is what's it called? It's a migraine night. So, here we go. I feel stuck, and I feel I'm not making progress. And I feel discouraged. How do you know you are making progress? Forget progress. I'm frustrated as I don't know if I'm practicing meditation the right way. Well, I got good news for you, but I've also got bad news. Let's see, 4 metrics. There we go. So, one time I was at a conference, and it was for a bunch of people who wanted humanity to take its next evolutionary steps away from competition and cruelty and towards cooperation and kindness. And I thought, woohoo, that sounds good to me. And the day wore on, and there were lovely presentations, and then we came to the Q&A session. I raised my hand and waited, and when eventually I was called upon, I stood up and addressed the panel of dignitaries, asking them what the precise method was for us to move from where we are now to our very worthy goal. The second in charge lost his mind and read me the riot act in no uncertain terms, saying that it was a stupid and horrible and morally indefensible thing to do to ask how we get there. I showed him the error of his ways, and eventually the guy who was in charge, the head honcho, answered very humbly my question as best he could, beginning with the phrase, "I don't really know exactly." That was not my first time dealing with authoritarian groups where people were playing hide the sausage with the truth, but not in the fun, tingly way. I guess hide the sausage isn't the right simile. I guess it was more like they were playing 3-card Monty with the truth. Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, and of course not in the fun, tingly way. There are many teachers who know that their techniques don't work. And so rather than being honest and saying, my technique doesn't seem to be working, maybe I should continue with my training and I should continue with my education, they'll just turn around and say, "Oh, yeah, don't check your progress. Yeah, there is no goal. No, forget about that stuff. Yeah, just pay your monthly dues, sit on your cushion, and stare at your wall." I'm not sure where my accent was going. It was all over the place, wasn't it, folks? So... But the Buddha wasn't that way. I'm going to share with you tonight 3 metrics the Buddha gave so that we can easily chart where we are on the path. I'll also, as an extra added bonus, give you the Buddha's timetable so you can figure out where you're at, not for the purpose of beating yourself up. I don't know if you're even half as geeky as me. I am incorrigibly geeky. That's the adjective I've been searching for the last 72 hours. I am incorrigibly geeky. I can't tell you how many times I've watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Who can forget the monks walking in procession, chanting in Gregorian style, and then pausing their chant long enough to pound themselves on the forehead with a big old hunk of wood. I don't want you to do that to yourself. I do not want you to beat yourself up. I do not offer the Buddhist techniques of evaluation so you can crumple up the remnants of your self-esteem and throw them in the dumpster. No. Why would I share with you the Buddha's method of evaluation? So you can tell whether you are on track or not. Not for the purpose of beating yourself up, but so you can make fine adjustments. We need informational feedback. As a child, my mother, stepfather took me and my sister to an outing at a local lake. And my stepfather rented a boat with an outboard motor. Once he grew bored of steering the boat, he delegated that to me. And he said, see those two landmarks? Aim the prow of the boat between those two landmarks. When you notice that the prow of the boat is going beyond one of those landmarks, make subtle adjustments to the tiller of the outboard motor. And even a first grader was able to do that. That's what we're doing here. We don't make evaluations so we can decide whether or not to hate ourselves. We make evaluations so we can make these subtle course corrections necessary. Consider, if you will, a fluffy kitty cat. In the midst of zoomies, running becomes pedestrian, and they want to leap, to jump like little fluffy Superman. And so they will run and jump, and they will notice how they landed, and they will make adjustments and then try again and again and again, and then eventually, astound us with their feline acrobatics. If self-evaluation is found throughout the animal kingdom, if it's good enough for kitty cats and doggies and primates, it may just be good enough for me and you. So before I share these 3 forms of evaluation and a timetable, 2 turntables and a microphone. So before I share that with you, I want to remind you that mindfulness and meditation are splendid tools, but they are not the only tools. And we must remember not to be the handyman, armed only with a hammer, seeing all problems as nails, for they are not all nails. There are a vast number of problems, a vast variety, if you will. And so when it comes to our journey, we have to remember that the formula of our life is remarkably complex. As a groupie, as a physics groupie, I watch YouTube videos and I've seen some formulas which are very succinct, and others that will fill an entire sheet of paper with a dizzying array of variables. Our lives are like the second, not the first. Everything affects everything. Let's start with lifestyle variables. Getting enough sleep, getting enough rest, getting enough recreation, getting enough fresh air, sunshine, exercise, eating a whole food, a delicious, fun, whole food vegan diet. These things have far-reaching effects on our body. There are many of us, at least 15% approximately 5 to 15% of the general population has some form of a dopamine system dysfunction. You cannot pray that away. You cannot positive that away. You cannot self-talk that away. We need experts who are experienced with that to help us. We need the help of experts. We need the help of peers who have also weathered those storms, those high seas of neurological challenges. There is no need for either of us or any of us to reinvent the wheel. In fact, trying to do so is like an exhausting waste of time. Having said that, let's giddy up. So as I promised, we shall explore 3 metrics and a timetable. The first metric are the 4 Noble Truths. I think I passed it. I think I saw a putty tat. I don't like Tweety Bird. I always rooted for the Sylvester. Where are the 4 Noble Truths? I put them someplace safe. So safe I cannot find them. Here we go. Whew. All right. I'm going to have to find a new home for this bad boy. Okay. The quick review. Don't want to overly insult anybody's intelligence. The first truth is that there are stressors. Ask a biologist. They will tell you that there are circumstantial stressors, physical stressors, interpersonal stressors, and mental stressors. We evolved evolutionary mechanisms to deal with those stressors. We can think of them as 2 drives or 3 drives or 6 drives. Basically, they're the same thing. They're drives that are designed to keep us alive long enough to procreate, because that's how natural selection works. The problem is not the presence of the drives. The problem is the tyranny of the drives. For in addition to a dopamine-oriented system that rewards with pleasure, there's also an oxytocin system that rewards for or with fulfillment. And the two are often at odds with each other. And so we don't want to get rid of our survival instincts. We just don't want to be controlled by them. That's the liberation the Buddha offers us. So the question is not, do we feel the drive to shove some things away or reach for other things or cling to other things with white-knuckle intensity? The question is, are we controlled by these impulses like a marionette on a string? The less we are controlled by these impulses, the more freedom we have. The more controlled we are by these impulses, the less freedom we have. So there are shitheads prancing about the countryside, stomping and snorting and saying that if you feel fear or anger, then you're a spiritual failure. No, you're not. If you feel anything, then congratulations, you are experiencing mindfulness. Well done. The question is not what we feel. The question is, what do we do with what we feel? Are we able to apply the Eightfold Path? Because enlightenment is simply mastery of the Eightfold Path. And you've heard me say this a lot. As a dull child, it took me a very long time to tie my shoes, but eventually I learned to tie my shoes so well that I could do so spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Eventually, I learned to ride a bike. Eventually, I learned to brush my teeth and even floss. When we get so good with the Eightfold Path that we are able to practice it thusly, then we have mastered the path. When we are able to practice the Eightfold Path spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Spoiler alert. Practice every 12 hours with me on this, this free platform. And you can do it. You can do it really quickly. When you have questions, jot them down, ask them in class. If your timetable doesn't quite jive with mine, then simply type your questions not in the chat window, but in the comment area when you watch a replay of the live stream. Be ruthless in the answering of your questions, and apply the advice I give you, and mastery of the path will become, in the words of Agent Smith, all together get out, kids, an inevitability. That's right, I'm expecting your kitty cats to start saying that to you. I expect tomorrow morning one of your cats will sit, as you lay in bed, your kitty cat will sit upon your sternum and gaze into your eyes. Do you hear that sound, Mr. Anderson? That is the sound of kibble waiting to be poured into my bowl. It is the sound of breakfast. It is the sound of your destiny. So that's our first mark of evaluation. Now let's come to our second mark of evaluation, the Noble Eightfold Path. Real quick. Un momento, if you please. I want to open up another text here. Thank you for your patience. Now, let's move on to the Noble Eightfold Path. First, got to make sure that everything's cool and copacetic. "50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path pertains to loving kindness. The second, third, fourth, and fifth folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path pertain to loving kindness of mind, loving kindness of communication, loving kindness of conduct, nonviolence, and loving kindness of commerce. the more this flows in a manner that is spontaneous and uncontrived, the further along the path we are. The question is not what we feel. The question is, what is our will? What is our intention? What are our words? What are our deeds? What are our policies and practices as we go through life? The more this... So don't make the mistake I did. I had teachers who were really onto the path of being rigid and fearful and controlling and elitist and cryptic and competitive and cruel. And they taught me the path of contrivance, how to just will myself into an analog of love. And that really wasn't where it was at. I'll tell you why. The more we master mindfulness and meditation, the more we will experience love and the wisdom of letting go. Spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. The more it will flow from centered spontaneity. And that is the effortless effort. All these things flow from a healthy and optimized practice of mindfulness and meditation. So after we explore the third criteria and the timetable, we will review the techniques for mindfulness and meditation to optimize your journey. Everything I do is free. There's no hidden agendas. There's no hidden books. There's no hidden courses. There's no hidden retreats. It's easy peasy lemon squeezy. Approximately every 12 hours, I am here assailing your monitor with my face. So I'm not a salesman. I'm just a teacher. So there we go. The second mark is our love. Now let's come to the third way of evaluation, and that is the 7 enlightenment factors. How free is our mindfulness from the heavy chains of defensiveness? As a little boy, every year I would watch an animated version of A Christmas Carol. And the ghost of Jacob Marley would scare the shit out of me every year. I mean, I wasn't sure what was worse, the fact that his jaw kept coming unhinged, or that he was dragging these heavy chains of ending in money boxes with him for all eternity. Oh, that was just horrific. Similarly, we drag chains of defensiveness. In our defensiveness, we act all... we will justify, minimize, rationalize, and fatalize why it's not our fault, why the Buddha's being unfair, why it's somebody else's fault, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's your life. What are you going to do to fix it? Which experts are you going to ask for help? And by ask for help, I mean grab them by the lapel and shake them like a French au pair until they help you out. And by help you out, what I really mean is help you the fuck out. Because sometimes you gotta be ruthless. Have you ever seen YouTube videos of kitty cats fighting over a nipple while they're nursing? They are ruthless. There is no empathy. There is no cooperation. It's capitalism at its worst. I'm not asking you to be a bloodthirsty capitalist, but I am asking you to exercise a modicum of ruthlessness. So, an additional mark of our progress is, are the techniques that we are employing, are they increasing our energy? Are they increasing our joy? Are they increasing our peace? when we breathe in, are we able to experience a coalescence? When we breathe out, are we able to relax? Are we able to apply mindfulness and meditation to everything in our lives? Every circumstance, every circumstantial phenomena, every physical phenomena, every interpersonal phenomena, every mental phenomena. Are we able to bring each of those? Are we able to apply mindfulness and meditation to everything in our life? To the pleasurable stuff, to the painful stuff, to the boring stuff. This is a wonderful way of measuring our progress on the path. I know what it's like to have moments of creativity and get super excited. In those moments of hyperfixation, there is a euphoria and a sense of confidence untethered to reality. And that's exciting. But it is not a test of reality. And so, just as Tony Montego, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, from Scarface, was told not to get high on his own supply, we have to get not to get too terribly high on our own neurotransmitters. Try not to believe our press. Try not to believe our press when we are like in the thrall of hyperfixation and dopamine surplus and feeling amazing. And then try not to feel your press, try not to believe your press too much when you are in between peaks of inspiration. And when you feel exhausted and just lying down and petting a cat and watching TV and eating a carrot. You're the same person each time with the same body and the same mind. So let us be aware of the thrall of the present moment, but not a slave to it. Just as Karl Marx said, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. I would say, human beings of the world, practice meditation. You have nothing to lose but the tyranny of our own neurotransmitters. Karl Marx had a better turn of phrase than me. So, we've looked at 3 criteria with which to measure ourselves. The 4 Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 7 Enlightenment Factors. For an extra added bonus, let's look at the Buddha's timetable. I think it's all the way over here. Yep, it is. One moment, if you please. Please bear with me. Feel like there it is. Okay. One moment while I fetch something. Please bear with me. All right, here we go. The promise of the Satipatthana Sutta is that it is possible to master the Buddha's path in 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. If 7 years have elapsed and you ain't there yet, either A, you've received some crappy techniques. B, you failed to master the techniques. The techniques were good and you failed to master them. Or C, a combination of both. No problem. I'm going to use neuroscience again to sort of break free of some confusions that are popular in the world of meditation so that you can properly apply Buddha's techniques easily, pleasurably, and efficiently. Because that's the name of the game. Let's start with this artist's side view of the human brain. This is the forehead right here. This is the mouth. Lots of teachers insist that we must actively concentrate and actively analyze. The only way to do that is to utilize neurological mechanisms such as the medial prefrontal cortex or the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. I do apologize for the crude nature of this illustration. I apologize for the fact I do not have a PhD in the subject. I'm just an enthusiast who's been studying neuroscience informally in an effort to deal with my own disabilities. Having said that, my understanding is that fMRI studies, functional magnetic resonance imaging studies, have shown that our prefrontal cortex is an amazing tool. But like any tools, it's only good for certain jobs. And if we use the right tool for the wrong job, we're going to get crappy results. First, our amygdala will light up and we'll experience greater anxiety and aggression. And if we ignore that screaming sign that we're on the wrong track, we will eventually even present with the symptoms of depression, which really suck. Therefore, we got to use the right mechanisms, even the wet ones, for the right job. Now, the brain is part of the central nervous system, but not the be-all, end-all. The seventh fold of the Buddha's eightfold path is mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, whether we mean to or not, whether we feel it or not, we are accessing the sympathetic nervous system, which is found in the middle third, approximately, the middle third of our spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved not only to help us perceive, but help us perceive in a specific way, to help us perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. This is not the path of being rigid and controlling and uptight. This is not the path of being so rigid that if we fall on a hump, on a naked on a bruquette, we will toot out a diamond. Nope, it's the opposite. Just being really loosey-goosey. Vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random. But there's a scary side with this. We are wired to notice, not only are we wired to notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, we're also wired to notice emotions, all of them, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings, all of them. From the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. So how do we cope with the gurk? Glad you asked. The eighth fold of the Buddha's eightfold path is meditation, and every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, whether we mean to or not, whether we feel it or not, we access the parasympathetic nervous system, which is found in the lower third and the upper third of that same spinal cord. It is evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. So, its job is not to push away that which we perceive. Its job is to make peace with the slings and arrows of the present moment. Think of it this way. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel a little bit less permanent, a little bit less solid, a little bit less defining. Think of it this way. When I was a little boy, I got to see a giant pendulum at the Griffith Park Observatory. Most of us have not been there, but we've seen pendulums on TV or in grandfather clocks. Just as a pendulum swings one way and then the other, we take more than one breath as we go through life. We take an innumerable amount of breaths. Inhalation following exhalation, following inhalation, following exhalation. Perception following release, following perception, following perception, following release. Over and over and over. So no, Virginia, the purpose of meditation is not to shove away what we noticed, because that's the path of being rigid and controlling. What then is the purpose of meditation? Why do we sit cross-legged upon the floor? Because just as a fellow or a gal with a hunk of wood off the coast of Hawaii cannot hope to control the ocean, if they practice, they can learn to surf the wave. Never controlling the wave, even for a second, at least they can have fun with the wave, regardless of whether on that same wave is a hunk of seaweed or a piece of fish poop. Similarly, whatever life throws at us, whether it's interesting, boring, glorious, or grotesque, if we can surf the present moment, then love and centered spontaneity and wisdom will take care of themselves. Now, if you're half as lazy as me, you could ask, well, dude, I'm already wired for this stuff, so I don't have to meditate because I'm special. Yes, you are. But there's a reason why we aren't already the epitome of spiritual perfection. One reason that boils down to one word: Urkel. Our brain acts like Urkel. Clever, but clumsy. Forever knocking shit over and getting in its own way. Like a nervous suitor meeting his girlfriend's dad for the first time. So, but there's something really ironic, and here it is. If all we do is silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, and also silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, then our brain will begin cooperating with the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, and we'll be well on our way to mastering the mindfulness and meditation and all the rest. Thank you, Kevin. Teddy sounds like a character. I do look forward to chanting with you and practicing with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you won't have to. Welcome, my friends, to meditate like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you, including the generosity of James. Thank you very much, James. Well, apparently Teddy is a feline of impeccable taste, eh, Kevin? If you are neurotypical, you can probably sit in meditation and have a gay old time, and that's wonderful. If you are neurodivergent, you will probably feel the need to alternate between meditation and gentle contemplation. I'm neurodivergent, so that's how I lead class. So let us begin by bringing the mental into the path of love, mindfulness, meditation, and the 3 marks of existence. Let us begin by bringing the mental into the path of dukkha, stress, which is the first mark of reality. Please chant with me. Each of us has experienced the stress of not getting our mental needs met. How we want, when we want, for as long as we want to fathom. So we're going to take all these words and squeeze them down into just 6 syllables, which we're going to divide between our inhalation and our exhalation. And don't worry, this question is purely rhetorical. We now bring the same mind into the path of metta, love, together. Since we are not alone in our frustrations, we could also long that others' mental needs also be met. And by the way, my pal, there are many factors that help us to practice the Eightfold Path. There are many factors that undermine our practice of the Eightfold Path. There are some people who can help us practice the Eightfold Path, and some people whose very presence undermines our practice of the Eightfold Path. Regardless of someone's vibes or riz or haircut or garments, if someone is manipulative and trying to use us or coerce us in any way, shape, or form, that can really trigger our survival mechanisms to the point where they go hog wild and we play the fool. So, as your mindfulness and meditation inform your centered spontaneity Your centered spontaneity at times might guide you towards some people and away from people. Not your scattered spontaneity. That's just. That'll get you in all kinds of trouble. But your centered spontaneity is your Jiminy Cricket. Now let us continue working with the mental, and this time bring it into the path of anicca impermanence, the second mark of reality. Together. Observing the coming and going of mental phenomena, help us to see that ever-changing one and all there is nothing permanent to grasp. And finally, we're going to bring the Chitta mental into Anatta's path of not self, which is the third mark of reality. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever mental phenomena we notice during our previous inhalation could feel less like our identity, as if it simply did not define us. Remember, together as a team. And so, as such, let us bring whatever we spontaneously notice into the path of awareness and release, which is known by all kinds of fun synonyms. Let us seal this evening's practice by chanting loving wishes of universal enlightenment and well-being. May all mind clear yet and permanent be as enlightened as a Buddha's mind. May all relationships resounding yet and permanent be as loving as a Buddha's speech. May all bodies sensual yet and permanent be as beautifully healthy as a real or imagined Deva's form. May all circumstances appearing yet and permanent be as safe and abundant as a real or imagined Devi's land. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 3/4 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.